tranquility.
He has attained tranquility.
To such a man,
To such a man,
happiness and distress,
happiness and distress,
heat and cold,
heat and cold,
honor and dishonor
honor and dishonor
are all the same.
are all the same.
Purport. Actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by superior dictation. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of Paramatma or Supersoul. Because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is in Krishna consciousness, the devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, namely distress and happiness, cold and heat, etc. This state is practical samadhi or absorption in the Supreme. Thus ends wonderful transcendental purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are reading the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. As we have seen, this chapter has 4 sections. And for us to make it easy to remember, there is an acronym called EASY. And as just last Sunday, Prabhu started the class, although the acronym is easy, the method of Dhyana Yoga that has been explained in this chapter is anything but easy. So right now we are studying the first section, E. So the topic of um, a class last Saturday, 1 week from now, 1 week back, and this entire section is really talking about the importance of understanding how the mind plays such a vital role in our progress, our journey in life, whatever journey we may take, whether we are going towards a journey, a path of increasing dualities, of increasing distress, or we are going towards a path towards liberation. Mind plays a very, very important central role. So this section of verses talks about the importance of the mind, about the importance of controlling the mind, and in particular, today's verse is talking about one specific aspect of the mind which has been touched upon in the past, but is stressed in today's class. So let us go a little deeper into the verse itself. Jitatmanah prashantasya paramatma samahitah shitoshna sukha dukkheshu tatha manayoho. Jitatmanah is one who has conquered the mind. Prashantasya is who has attained tranquility. Prashantah, Shantah is peace. So here is translated as Prashantah, Prashantah, complete peace. That is translated as tranquility. So Asya, one who has attained such tranquility. Prashanta Asya. How? By Samahitaha Paramatma. That is by complete absorption in the super soul, Paramatma. samahitaha. Here it is translated as approached completely. And in the translation, it is said the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. Whereas the word by word meaning samahitaha is explained as approached completely. And in the purport, if you see the last line of the purport, Prabhupada is saying, this state is practical samadhi or absorption in the Supreme. So this practical samadhi or absorption, that is referred to by Paramatma Samahitaha. So the complete and total absorption in the Supreme, complete and total um, um, thoughts, action, and absorption is the best word in the Supreme, that results in a state. What is that state? Conquering of mind and complete tranquility. So the interesting part of this verse today is how Krishna is um, subtly giving a teaser of the subject which is being built up in this entire chapter and is spoken of in the last verse, particularly yoginam api sarvesham madgater antaratmanah. So one who is completely abiding in the Supreme is considered the topmost yogi. But here Krishna is saying that one who has achieved the tranquility should be understood to have also achieved the super soul. In other words, if you have conquered your mind, super soul is already achieved. So this could be a little confusing if somebody thinks that, okay, I will by my own independent effort, I will try to control my mind, and after all, if I have controlled the mind, then everything else is considered to have been achieved. Super soul is already have been achieved, so I don't have to make any endeavor in pleasing the Lord, in connecting with the Lord, in understanding my relationship with the Lord. None of that is necessary, because simply by controlling the mind, it is understood that super soul is already reached. But that is not the case. That is not the meaning of this. This is why one must understand the overall theme behind what Krishna is saying, and then understand exactly what Krishna is meaning by this, because these verses, they are spoken poetically, can very easily confuse a person. We have seen how in the previous verse the word Atma is used 6 times, each time with a different meaning. So 6 times the word Atma is used, and how Srila Prabhupada has expertly translated that so that we can have some words. Today's verse also is a little cryptic. It looks very simple. Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita. One who has conquered the mind, super soul already reached, or is attained tranquility. In other words, somebody who's tranquil. For him, there's no need for any service or attain or a separate effort to connect or understand the Supreme. Is that what it means? Because after all, to such a person, it says that such a person, happiness, distress, heat and cold, honor, dishonor, all the same. So if I have, through my own effort, if I control the mind, then there is nothing further. But that is not the case. That is not the case. And that Prabhupada explains in the purport. How the living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in the material activities. And therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. So he's repeating this translation here. And then he explains that one has to abide by superior dictation. The mind does not have a choice. It has to abide. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma or the Super Soul. So the controlled mind is automatically listening to the Paramatma or the Super Soul. But we have already seen Pramati Balabadridam. The mind is so difficult to conquer, so difficult to control, that this procedure of first controlling the mind so that it may automatically follow the dictation is next to impossible. Which is why Srila Prabhupada is then adding, because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who's in Krishna consciousness, the devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence. In other words, one who takes to Krishna consciousness immediately comes to the position of listening to the dictation of Paramatma, and therefore his mind becomes immediately controlled. So you see the cause and effect. By following the process of Dhyana Yoga, one can control the mind. One whose mind is controlled has the opportunity to listen to the dictation of Paramatma. But that is very, very difficult process. And therefore, it is now Krishna is setting the stage for explaining this, how the process of Ashtanga Yoga, the process of controlling the mind, and how by controlling the mind, one can actually come to the position of listening to the dictation of Paramatma. And then Arjuna says, but this is impossible for me to do. Right? So the stage is being set for all of that, for the explanation of the process of Ashtanga Yoga, and Arjuna to say that this is very difficult for me, and then for Krishna to say finally that actually one who abides in me always is the topmost yogi. So the whole momentum in the 6th chapter is being built towards that climax. But Srila Prabhupada is explaining this to us, that for a person who's a devotee, the person who has taken to Krishna consciousness is immediately in that position. So therefore, the one does not have to go through the process of one's own dint of one's effort to control the mind. Last time we talked about an elephant. So last Sunday, I wanted to just show you a few images of this independent of what an elephant can do. This is an image of a jeep that is going through one of the national forests in Sri Lanka. And this jeep is going, and there are a bunch of tourists who are seated in the jeep. The driver is in the driver's seat, and you can see what is happening here. The elephant there is a lone elephant in the forest. And when a lone elephant comes in the forest, actually it is very, very unpredictable what the elephant will do. The elephant in this example is attacking the jeep, is poking its nose, it's trying to understand. Actually, it's not attacking in this example, it's just poking inside to see what is happening here. It is curious to see what is happening. So expressing curiosity. But of course, the inhabitants, the people who are in the jeep, the tourists who are there, are terrified. They don't know what the elephant will do next. The elephant is, the car appears to be coming towards the elephant. This is in Africa. But actually, it is not the car that is coming towards the elephant. The elephant is running towards the car, and the car is going in reverse, going away from the elephant. That's what is happening in this picture. So it appears that the car is coming towards the elephant as if it doesn't bother. But actually, the elephant is chasing the car, and the car is going in reverse. And here is a very interesting picture. This elephant is scratching its belly. This elephant is feeling some itch. And it thinks, what better way to relieve the itch than to simply sit on top of a car and rub its belly. Because ordinarily the elephant legs are also big, does not get a chance to rub the belly nicely in a ordinary ground. So this elephant decided that it will climb on top of a car and it will relieve its itch by rubbing the roof of the car on its belly. So you see, the elephant is very unpredictable. Lone elephant. When it's in along with its all family members in a large group, herd, it's very peaceful. But a lone elephant, an independent elephant, you cannot tell what it'll do. In fact, the jeep example, I have personal experience with this, although I don't remember it. I have been told about it. When I was 1 year old, my parents had gone to a excursion, a safari, a jungle safari in the forest of Madhya Pradesh. And there the person who was the safari leader, who was the driver, So he was taking the car, and at that time I was 1 year old. My elder brother was 3 years old, and my parents were seated in the car, four of us, and the jeep was going. At a distance, there was a lone elephant spotted, and immediately the driver of the jeep stopped the jeep and switched off the engine and instructed my parents to be absolutely still. He said that this lone elephant cannot be predicted. It can, I mean, any moment it can charge towards the jeep. And just at that point, what happened was, in my mouth, 1 year old baby, there was a pacifier to keep me silent, and that pacifier fell down in the floor of the jeep. And as soon as the pacifier fell down, I have been told that I immediately started crying that I want my pacifier back. And everybody in the jeep was terrified. The elephant heard the noise and looked at us, looked at the jeep, and started approaching the jeep. So immediately, somehow, the parents put the pacifier back in the mouth, and the jeep was turned around and fled. But this independent elephant, I have heard many stories about this, about how elephants that are traveling alone cannot be trusted. One must keep distance from such elephants. And we heard in last Sunday's class how Srimad Bhagavatam compares the uncontrolled mind to the independent elephant. This was a specific verse that was quoted. Yavan mano rajasa purushasya satvena va tamasa va nuruddham cheto bhirakutubhir atanoti nirankusham kushalam chetaram va. Nirankusham, Ankusha. Ankusha is the trident by which an elephant is controlled, and Nirankusham is an elephant without any such control. So Yavan Mano Rajasa Purushasya. So long as the mind is under the influence, the living entity, Purushasya is the living entity, Purushasya Manaha. So the living entity's mind, Yavan, as long as it is under the influence of Rajasa, Satvena, Va Tamasa, by the three modes of material nature, Va Anuruddham, or it is controlled by these modes of nature, then what happens? Controlled by the senses, or by the senses of action. So knowledge acquiring senses are the karmendriyas. Yesterday or last Sunday we saw karmendriya and jnanendriya. There are 5 jnanendriyas and the 5 karmendriyas. So as long as the mind is dictated, is under the control of the senses, or mind is under the influence of the 3 modes of material nature, Raja, Tamas, and Sattva, then what happens? Such a mind only Atanoti expands like Nirankusham. What does it expand? Kushalam cha itaram va. That is auspicious and inauspicious activities, auspicious and inauspicious activities. As long as the mind of the living entity is contaminated by the 3 modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, his mind is exactly like an independent, uncontrolled elephant. It simply expands its jurisdiction of pious and impious activities by using the senses. The result is that the living entity remains in the material world to enjoy and suffer the pleasures and pains due to the material activities. So if the mind is contaminated by modes of material nature, it acts very much like a uncontrolled elephant, completely independent elephant, and it's very, very dangerous. And the result of that is it remains in the material world to enjoy and suffer the pleasures and pains due to the material activity. And to clarify this, because somebody may think that, okay, what is the problem? After all, I'm enjoying some pleasure, right, in the material activity, and the senses are doing their job. They're trying to get me pleasure. And I have these very nice servants, my senses, who are constantly finding pleasure opportunities for me. And yes, sometimes they misfire, they make a mistake and they get some pain. But then other times I'm getting pleasure. So what is wrong in that? So Prabhupada explains in the purport by quoting from Chaitanya Charitamrita that the material pious and impious activities are both opposed to the principle of devotional service. Devotional service means mukti, freedom from material entanglement, But pious and impious activities result in entanglement within this material world. If the mind is captivated by pious and impious activities mentioned in the Vedas, one remains eternally in darkness. One cannot attain to the absolute platform. So just to clarify, these pious activities, they are not just random pious activities that one may consider to be good for others. It is not like that. There are very specific activities enjoined in the Vedas as pious activities, such as samskaras, such as the charitable contribution to a qualified brahmana, performance of Vedic rituals, various yagnas. These are pious activities. So even those such activities, performance of yagna with fruitive result, intent, which are mentioned in the Vedas, one remains eternally in darkness. The mind is captivated. What is that verse? Ya imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipaschitaha vedavadarata partha samadhau na vidhiyate. Is that correct? Somebody, did I quote this correctly? I'm not able to hear Prabhu. Panduranga Prabhu, if you can speak, I can hear.
Prabhu, can you say it again? I lost it actually. I'm sorry.
Okay, this is yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipaschitaha vedavadarata partha. The last line I don't remember. Is it samadhavana vidhiyate? But that doesn't look right. Vedavadarata partha. The last line I don't remember. Sorry, was somebody saying something? Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu. Bhogashwarya Prasakta Naam.
No, not that. Not that.
Okay, sorry.
Nanyad
Na anyat is
Astiti
asti iti
vadinaha.
vadinaha. Na anyat asti iti vadinaha. Yes, thank you. So actually, the temple, Panduranga Prabhu, what is the difference? Are you in the temple hall or where are you?
No. I'm in my room.
Okay. So the temple hall, whatever is being spoken, not audible. I don't know if others are experiencing the same thing.
Yes, Prabhu, it's not very clear.
Not clear. So that's what Prabhupada is saying in this purport, that if one is captivated by the pious and impious activities mentioned in the Vedas, one remains eternally in darkness. Just see the power of the sentence. See this, one may think that by following the Karma Kanda section in the Vedas, one may actually gradually advance towards moksha, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But actually, Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is very, very strongly said that one remains eternally in darkness. Absolute platform at all by such a process to change the consciousness from ignorance to passion or from passion to goodness does not really solve the problem. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 14.26, Sagunan samati tyetyam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One must come to the transcendental platform, otherwise life's mission is never fulfilled. So therefore, to consider that one may, it is okay, Sattva-guna is okay, because after all, Vedas as Vedic procedures, the rituals are lifting us towards Sattva-guna. So what is wrong? The problem is if one gets captivated with that, one of the downsides of Sattva-guna is that one gets conditioned to happiness. Because Sattva-guna gives us some happiness, therefore one gets conditioned to that happiness. So that further makes us start to enjoy the success, the material pleasures that come because of the pious activities, and that leads us to further sinning and performing impious activities, and this cycle continues, and eventually one can never come out of it. And then Prabhupada has given a couple of, let me just give you a couple of more quotes, and let's see if anyone can remember where this quote is from. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryans. So does anybody remember where this is from? Temple hall, unfortunately, I won't be able to hear. I think
This is from
somebody's trying to say
Bhagavad
something.
9th chapter.
Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter. Not exactly.
Second chapter.
Yes, second chapter.
Uh,
Second chapter. Which verse?
Is it the first verse? Or no, not
Yes, Prabhu. Second verse.
second verse.
Very
Second.
close. Yes. So this is the verse where Anarya Jushtam Aswargyam Akirtikaram Tavacharjuna. Kutastva Kashmalabidam Vishame Samupasthitam Anarya Jushtam Aswargyam Akirtikaram Tavacharjuna. So as soon as Arjuna finishes giving his arguments and keeps his bow and arrows and sits down, immediately the first thing that Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalamidam Vishame Samupasthitam. So he says, where from these impurities have come upon you? This is not at all befitting one who knows the higher values of life. So the word Aryan is described in that purport in this way. The person who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryans. And the word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. So if material processes could solve our problems, our perplexities of life, then there was no need for Bhagavad Gita to have been spoken by Krishna. The transcendental nature of the message of Bhagavad Gita is specifically intended to lift us out of our material perplexities. So material perplexities, why do they come? Why are these difficulties coming upon us? So we do not reflect upon it properly. We do not get to the root cause. Then we keep getting entangled and we are unable to come out of our difficulties and challenges that we face in our life, sometimes going up, sometimes going down. We are unable to come out of it. But if our life's energy can be directed towards understanding, why am I suffering? Why this sometimes good, sometimes bad happens? Why these dualities of life are there? Then such a person is called an Aryan. If the civilization, if the person and a group of people, the word Aryan is applicable to persons. It is not one person. It is a group of persons, or you can say a culture and civilization. We often say this modern civilization is giving us greater prosperity, wealth, and health, long life, etc. But actually the definition of a civilization, an advancing civilization, is given in Bhagavad Gita very differently. If a civilization is able to place as its goal finding a permanent solution to problems of life, that is actually an advancing civilization. And subsequently, in the 7th verse of the 2nd chapter, where Arjuna surrenders to Krishna, Shadimam Tvam Prapannam, there is a further description given by Prabhupada in the purport about Karpanya Dosha. So Arjuna says, Karpanya Dosho Pahata Swabhavaha Prachami Tvam Dharma Sammuda Chetaha Yashreyasyanishthitam Bruhi So Karpanya Dosha, Arjuna is admitting his miserly weakness. And Prabhupada explains, what does that miserly weakness mean? What does Karpanya, Kripanaha, what does it mean? So it says that man in material perplexities, if he does not really understand why I'm suffering, that person is called Kripanaha. If he is passing the entire life, we are born, we grow a little old, we go to school, we take up college, we go, we get married, we have children, we grow old, we die. Everybody goes through this. Everyone in the human race goes through this. There's no change in this for generations, thousands and thousands of generations, millennia. Human beings have gone through this. The way of learning, the college, school, all these things change. But basically the process is the same. So generation after generation, we are doing this, we are going through this, and at the end of the life, we have no understanding. Why did I go through this? Why did I have to be put through so much of suffering? And the duration of life that we spend in old age is much more painful and much more difficult than the small period of time that we spend in youth with our energy, enthusiasm, and activities in trying to acquire wealth and prosperity. Compared to that, the life of old age is much, much longer and much more painful. But in spite of suffering like this, if a person is not able to understand what is causing my problem, then such a person is called Kripanaha. Let us, and then last Sunday, Prabhu had also quoted one wonderful verse. Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudramapa pravishanti yatvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. Achala pratishtam, the way the ocean is completely still in spite of all the rivers of water entering into the ocean remains still. Just like that, if a person does not yield to the temptations that are constantly arising within one's mind, such a person will find peace, not a person who gives in to all the desires. So in our effort to understand the problems of life, when we understand that the mind, if it is not controlled, mind which is under the control of the senses is like an independent elephant, then this understanding is very important, that actually our peace and our happiness is tied to not yielding to the temptation, but actually not yielding. It is not, we don't get the happiness and pleasure in giving to the temptation, but rather in not yielding. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. And in the purport, Prabhupada gives this description that actually the person who's in Krishna consciousness, it is not that he's bereft of desires. One may think that such a person has no desires at all, but it is not like that. The desires are there, but he does not give importance to those desires. He does not fulfill every desire that comes up. So some desire may come that, oh, let me do this. I'm not interested in this kind of desire. So he just ignores such a desire. He does not come under the control of such a desire. So that is the difference. Now let us just read one more time the last verse. Bandhuratmanas tasya yenat enatmaivatmana jitaha atmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. So Prabhu had stressed how vartetatmaiva shatruvat, that the result of a person whose mind is uncontrolled is that he lives with this enemy always. He is like Shatruvat, is like an enemy. Paradhareshu Matravat, we have seen, right? Another person's wife is like mother. Similarly, Shatruvat, Vartetatmaiva Shatruvat, is constantly living with the mind. Controlled mind is like an enemy. The mind will remain the greatest enemy. So there's a lot of, this is a very, we should be fearful of this. We should be fearful. Me, but the enemy is always living with us. So if we are not understanding the fear, our perilous condition, then we will have no motivation to get out of it. So it's very important to get the motivation to get out of it, which is why it is very much worth repeating this. And in fact, if you see the purport of last week and this week, today's purport, how much commonality is there, and how Prabhupada is stressing that, and Krishna himself is repeating some of these things so that we understand with no doubt that this is our situation. And last week's purport, it said the constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the orders of the superior. One who cannot control his mind always lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and his mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. So the mind is designed like that. That is the design of the mind. And if we don't understand our own mind that is with us always and is dictating our every move and is acting like our enemy, if we don't understand the nature of this mind, how will we ever be able to conquer it? So we should understand that the mind is always trying to serve. If the mind is not serving the right superior authority, then it will serve the wrong superior authority. And what is the wrong authority? It will be fallen to the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. So one thing to see about this constitutional position, and just before that, today's purport, the link. Actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. So the same thing that was said in last week's purport, every living entity is intended, constitutional position of the living entity is to serve a superior authority, is the starting point of today's purport. Every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So previously we had seen the law of countermeasures. How if something happens in our life, we try to take a countermeasure, counteraction. Or because I failed in my attempt to gratify my senses in a particular way, let me adjust. Let me change my formula and make a fresh attempt to counteract that, so that all my previous successes can be maintained, as well as my previous failures can be counteracted. So here is a new way of attempting to lord over the material energy. So when we do this, Narada Muni has said that if you do that in absence of Krishna consciousness, then it will fail. You will fail to do that. You will fail to achieve what you're intending to achieve, which is to eliminate the distress and only keep the happiness. It won't happen. You will not be able to overcome that, the distress. That is a law of countermeasure. But all the laws are based on a constitution. The laws of the land, even the laws that we create, they are based on the constitution. And the constitution of USA, you've seen here, right? We the people starts with we the people. That's the constitution. Similarly, there is a constitution for us also. And all the laws that we study are based on that constitution. What is that constitution? There is a constitution behind the law. And the constitution says the constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the supreme. This is a constitutional position. So if we understand the constitution, we can understand the laws that are based on the constitution. If we don't understand, if somebody has not studied the Constitution of America, let us say, and he's trying to carry out, become a lawyer, he's saying, oh, I can read all the laws. But if we don't understand the constitution based on which the laws are created, will he be a good lawyer? He won't be a good lawyer, right? He cannot fully understand the laws. He won't understand why the laws are made the way they are. So similarly, for us to understand the laws of nature, the laws of action and reaction, the laws of countermeasure, we need to understand what are those laws based on. It is based on a constitution, and it's a constitution of the living entity. The constitutional position of the living entity is actually to carry out the order of the superior. And we had seen how last week there was a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam of the teachings of Jadabharata to Rahuguna, how the uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy. And if one neglects it or gives it a chance, it'll keep on growing bigger and bigger and becoming more strong. So if we have to understand the constitutional position of the soul, because the mind covers it. The mind covers the constitutional position. So right now we are under the control of our mind. We are unable to understand that the constitutional position of our soul is to actually listen to a higher authority, to a higher dictation. But because our mind is covering that, and we are under the control of our mind. And we had seen how the mind has tricks that it uses, 3 tricks by which it fools us. It fools us by speculation. It fools us by adopting a designation. It fools us by favorable arguments. And if you see the exact translation that was taken last week, the great king Maharaj Bharata began to think, alas, this helpless young deer, by the force of time, an agent of Supreme Personality of Godhead, has now lost all its relatives and friends and has taken shelter of me. See how the mind is speculating. Can anybody know what the deer is thinking? Nobody is thinking. Nobody can know what the deer is thinking. But how King Bharata, Maharaj Bharata, who has given up his kingdom, who has gone to the forest to meditate through the Dhyana Yoga process, how his mind has started playing tricks with him. So it first of all starts speculating that, look, this deer is very helpless, and it is looking at you as a mother, father, brother, everything, relative, everything. I am everything for this deer. This deer is thinking in this way, and it has full faith in me. Just see how the mind is playing tricks on Maharaj Bharata, that he is now speculating what the deer is thinking. And therefore, I should not be envious and think that for the deer, my own welfare will be destroyed. I should certainly raise, protect, and gratify and fondle it. So the mind is saying, oh, take it, please take it in your lap and fondle it, raise it. It needs that love and affection. After all, every child, every baby needs love and affection. So this deer also needs, and is looking to you now. And then it gives a designation. It says, when it has taken shelter with me, how can I neglect it? See, now it is giving the designation. What is the designation? I am the protector. I am the Bharta, the maintainer of this deer. So now the mind has given a designation to oneself, that to Maharaj Bharata, that he is the maintainer of the deer. And then it starts giving favorable arguments. Even though the deer is disturbing my spiritual life, so Bharata can understand that, oh, if I start spending my time taking care of this deer, what will happen to my spiritual life? My entire kingdom was dependent on me. I have given up all of that. And now just this one deer is dependent. I'm thinking this is everything for me. So the mind is trying to pacify. Yes, yes, yes. Even though it's disturbing spiritual life, I realize that a helpless person who has taken shelter cannot be neglected. That would be a great fault. See how it's making arguments. So there's speculation, there is designation, and there is favorable arguments. So in our mind, in our life also, how to recognize his enemy. So when we recognize these three things that are happening, recognize that actually the mind is playing tricks upon us. It is preventing me from actually hearing the superior authority, which is Paramatma in my heart, internally, and spiritual master externally. But the mind is playing the trick. It's preventing me from doing that, and is justifying what it wants. It's justifying the seeking of sense gratification through these mechanisms. First of all, it speculates, and then it gives a designation. Oh, I am such and such a person. I have to do this. I am a father. I am a mother. I have to do this. I am the best employee of the month. I have to do this. I have a responsibility as a manager, as a leader in the company. I have to do this. So these designations are there, the speculations are there, and then there are also arguments on why that is the right thing to do. But in today's purport, there is a clarification on how we cannot simply control the mind by saying that, no, I will not listen to all these things. I will just control it. Because one must know that the mind's nature is to abide by superior dictation. So the only choice we have is which dictation we will take, which superior authority we will take. There is one verse in Bhagavad Gita. Upadrishtanta anumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha paramatmeti chapi ukto dehesmin purusha para. So Krishna is saying this. Upadrishtanta anumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha. So he is describing himself. Paramatmeti cha api ukto dehesmin purusha para. So as the Upadrishtanta, overseer, Anumanta, as the permitter, Bharta, maintainer, Bhokta, enjoyer, Maheshwaraha, the Supreme Lord. I am seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma, Chapi Ukto. So this person is called Paramatma. Of course, he doesn't say it is me right now. That he says in 15th chapter, that Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivishto Mattas
Matta smriti jnana poham cha vedasya surya ahmeva vedyo vedantkrit vidya.
Very nice, very nice. Yes. So that he says in the 15th chapter. Here he's saying that Paramatma is seated in everyone's heart. And that Paramatma is the maintainer. He is the enjoyer, transcendental enjoyer, supreme proprietor, is overseer and permitter. And he's known as a super soul. So this person in the same body where mind is existing, the same body, Paramatma is also existing. So we have a choice. We can listen to Paramatma or we can listen to the mind. That's our choice. The mind which is uncontrolled, if we listen to that mind, then it will play the three tricks upon us. What are the three tricks? Jagannath Prabhu?
Speculation, designation,
Bhagavatatva Prabhu?
Favorable arguments. Favorable argument.
So, yes, Prabhu. Favorable arguments. Thank you. So, speculation, designation, favorable arguments. So, these are the three things, the tricks that that the mind plays. But Paramatma is also in the same body. He's also seated. And if we listen to Paramatma, then such a thing does not happen. Paramatma does not play any tricks upon us. But then the question becomes, how do we listen to the Paramatma? How do we get to the point of listening to? How do we get to the point of accepting the dictation of Paramatma? And so Prabhupada explains this. how does Krishna really give instruction to us? How is he making his dictation available to us? He does so in two ways. One is from within the heart. He's giving the instruction as Paramatma, but we may sometimes not listen. We may not even be aware that that instruction is coming from Paramatma, because we are not able to differentiate the instructions of the mind, which is giving very, very nice arguments, versus the inspiration of the Paramatma. We are unable to differentiate. So therefore, from without, from outside, he gives instructions in Bhagavad Gita. And to clarify that, he also appears as a spiritual master, Acharya Mam Vijaniyam. It is said, Krishna says that we should understand that spiritual master is his representation. Should be understood as the representative of Krishna. So by listening, by agreeing voluntarily to become subservient to the dictation of the spiritual master, we can actually get a path to beginning to understand the dictation of Paramatma within our heart. And what happens if we don't do this? Prahlad Maharaja says that actually, if we don't do this, you'll anyway take guidance from some blind man, because guidance from somebody else as a guru. So we take our guidance from our mind, which is controlled by our senses, and the mind gives favorable arguments. One of the favorable arguments is, look, here is another person. Look, here is a leader in the society. He's also doing the same thing. It is not just you. Everybody is doing the same thing. This is how it should be. Life should be led. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch. Isha Tantriyam. So here Prahlad Maharaj says, Nate viduhu swartha gatim hi vishnum durashaya ye bahiratthamaninaha andha yathandhai rupaniya manas te apisha tantriyam urudhamni baddha. So apisha tantriyam, Isha Tantriyam means the laws, the ropes of material nature. So these other leaders that we accept in the society, those we accept as role models, they are also bound by the laws of nature. And when we follow in their instructions, when we follow in their footsteps, and we take their example, then together, because there's the ropes of laws of nature bind both the leader and the follower together. So if somebody is showing in the society, here is how you conquer over nature. Here is how you conquer over the climate. Here is how you go to the moon, and here is how you enjoy. Then that person, as well as the people who follow that person, everybody falls into the ditch. And this is our condition today. So we have to be equally fearful of not falling into the ditch by taking the advice of people who are themselves bound by the laws of nature. And instead, we must voluntarily surrender our free will to that person, to that representative who is above the laws of nature, who is transcendentally situated, who is a pure devotee. And how last time Prabhu had also explained, what does it mean? What is the meaning of really surrendering? It really, just to repeat what he had said, it is not so much that I am expert in this, therefore I will do this, but rather agreeing to follow the instructions, what has been given to us, which is regardless of what we consider as our talent and our inclination, and our propensities. So overriding inclination and propensity is for us to listen to our mind, and the overriding nature of the mind is to listen to the dictation of something it considers superior. So that is the whole purpose. That is the process. The process is not that I should contribute myself in the best possible way by using my talent, because that by doing that you continue to remain under the control of the mind, and the mind continues to remain under the control of the senses, and the senses are differently developed depending upon our past pious and impious activities. So a person who has got certain pious activities may have very well developed sense of smell, sense of singing, and naturally he is inclined towards music and he'll only interested in that. So even though in the initial stages one may dovetail, Prabhupada has created this program so that one's propensities may be dovetailed and thereby get purified. But then that should not be mistaken to mean that that is the primary process of spiritual realization or spiritual advancement. The primary process is to become subservient to a higher authority. But the authority, knowing our condition, makes it easy for us by allowing us to express some of our desires in dovetail, in accordance with the devotional service. And that is also exemplified by Ambarish Maharaj, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo, how the mind is always looking for something, and that is dovetailed Padara Vindayo by the lotus into the lotus feet of Krishna, and how Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanu the tongue is always looking to glorify, to talk, to do some, to speak in some way. What better way than to remain engaged in glorifying the wonderful transcendental qualities of the Lord. So Prabhupada has created this system, and in this system, although our talent, our inclinations are dovetailed, but that is the way in which that is done is with the superior authority. So our method of progress is to simply agree to voluntarily become subservient to those dictations of the superior authority. So with this, I will stop and see if you have any questions. Anybody has any comments or thoughts or any reflections on what you heard last week and this week?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
From
Prabhuji.
today's class, I have actually learned that the favorable dictation from the mind. So this looks like mind is actually favoring us, but actually this is not favoring us. This is just getting away from the Krishna consciousness. So
Yes, favorable arguments.
yes,
Favorable arguments are given, and because we should understand, so there should be no doubt in our mind that we are in the control of our mind. That we should not have any doubt. So the problem arises when we think that I have already managed to control some of my mind. Because after all, I'm not eating ordinary food. I'm eating only prasadam. I'm not eating onion garlic like this. I'm chanting every day. So because some degree of discipline is there, some degree of regulations we are able to follow, we begin to think that I have controlled my mind. And that is not the case.
yes.
Anybody else? Ankit Prabhuji? Bhagavad Tattva Prabhu? Jagan Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Bhagavad Tattva Prabhu is speaking, yes.
Yes, Prabhu. Last session, Prabhu spoke about how we can make our mind our friend. By conquering the mind, mind becomes our best friend, and the same way who fail to do so, control the mind, then the same mind will be our greatest enemy. And Prabhu talked about this is why it can be our enemy because or a friend, because mind has that thinking, feeling, and willing. So because of that independent nature, it want to be independent and do the way the mind play tricks, the way you said today. So the main purpose of practicing this yoga is to control the mind, and that is the actual human mission that take us to the close to the Lord, or to the samadhi or liberation. So the one unless one is mind is controlled, the other practice of yoga is simply waste of time. That also we talked about in the last class.
Today, any points from today?
Yes, Prabhu. Today mainly today's mainly this the constitution the position of a living entity is to carry out our orders of the superior or authorities. In that way, we can make our mind a friend and follow the instructions and be avoid of mind playing tricks by speculation, designation, and favorable arguments.
Yes. So constitutional position, the laws are based on constitution, and our constitutional position of living entity is to carry out the orders of superior authority. So actually it is meant to carry out the orders of Krishna. We are being part and parcel of Krishna. But then we come under the control of our mind, and the mind also, the nature of the mind is to follow a superior dictation. So the main thrust of today's class is that to understand the nature of the mind will follow a superior dictation. Our choice is to decide what superior dictation we are allowing the mind to follow. Which do we consider to be superior? Should it be that some person who's under the laws of nature, Isha Tantriyam, somebody who is bound by the laws of nature, some leader in the society, or should we follow the instructions of a pure devotee, who's transcendental in nature?
Yes, Prabhu.
Ankit Prabhu, anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. In today's class, as you mentioned, mind is like a uncontrolled elephant. It can go to any direction at any point of time. And you also spoke about Krishna gave one, the instruction to follow the Ashtanga Yoga, so that mind will be controlled. And we should allow our mind to follow the right instruction. We should not be following what mind is saying, right? And
Yes. The uncontrolled mind. So I just want to clarify the 3 points, because before I forget and to clarify. So the first thing you said is the mind is like an independent elephant, right? The uncontrolled mind, a mind, nirankushaha, that is a word that was used. Nira ankush, you know the Hindi word ankush, right? The trident which is used to control the elephant. So the mind which is not under is under the control of senses, is trying to satisfy the senses. The uncontrolled mind, that is like a uncontrolled elephant, independent elephant. You don't know what it's doing.
Yes,
What was the first point? And then what was the second point you said?
By Dhyana Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga.
Ashtanga Yoga, that is yet to come. I just touched upon it. That is beginning. Krishna is building up to that. So he's building up the Ashtanga Yoga process. That is the next section. And later on, Arjuna will also say that this is very difficult for me.
Yeah.
And the third point, you said there was a third point that you said.
Like constitutional position of the living entities to carry out the order of the supreme authority, which is none other than Lord Krishna.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share? Okay, I would request all of you to come on the camera. Repeat after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Granthra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Jagat Guru Shila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.